In stormy night in New Jersey, the police are blocking the road outside the city because they are looking for a criminal. They make a speeding truck stop. A police officer goes to the driver and asks for his ID, but the driver doesn't have one. The other police officers check the back of the truck. They are very surprised to see a lot of dogs there. A little later, a psychiatrist named Evelyn comes to the police station. Her job is to talk to the driver and decide if he should go to jail or to a hospital for mental health. When she goes into the jail cell, she sees the driver is in a wheelchair and has a new cut. The person turns around. Evelyn finds out that the driver is a man who dresses as a woman named Doug. Doug tells her that the dogs in the truck were like his children. Then, Evelyn talks Doug into telling her his story. Doug grew up in a family that was very religious and lived in the countryside. His father, Mike, raised dogs to fight. He would even stop feeding the dogs for a few days before a fight to make them angrier. Mike would also hit his wife and Doug for any small reason, especially if they tried to give food to the dogs. But Mike liked his older son, Richie, because Richie was like him. The dogs were angry and fought hard during the fights, but they loved Doug. Doug would lie down next to their cage to talk to them and pet them. Sometimes he even secretly gave them food, but one day, Richie saw him doing it and told Mike. Mike confronted Doug about it during lunch. Doug said that he liked dogs more than his own family. Mike got very mad, dragged Doug outside, and threw him into the cage with the dogs. The dogs immediately came close to Doug to cuddle and comfort him. From that day on, Doug lived in the cage, even during the very cold winter. He ate any leftover food his dad threw to him. One day, his mom brought him some cans of food and told him to bury them to hide them. Then, she told him she was running away because she was pregnant and wanted to give her new baby a better life. Doug tells Evelyn that he is not angry with his mom for leaving. A bit later, Richie put a sign on the cage that said, "In the name of God." He told Doug it was his fault that their mom left. But Doug smiled because he saw the sign from the inside, and God spelled backward is dog. After Evelyn leaves for the day, there's a flashback that shows what happened before Doug was arrested. A man named Juan went into an old, empty college building. He found a Doberman dog guarding the hallway. He asked for the dogman. A door opened to Doug's secret rooms. The rooms looked quite nice, even though the building was in bad shape. Juan was the one who had put in all the cameras a few months before. Now he gave Doug a puppy. An old lady named Martha, who ran the local laundromat and did Doug's laundry, had found the puppy. Juan explained that a gangster called the Executioner had been taking money from local shops every week, but Martha couldn't pay him anymore. She had to sell some special family items she loved. Doug told Juan not to worry because he would handle it. A little later, Douglas dressed up like a widow. He waited on the street near the club where the gangsters hung out. He sent a small dog into the club with a phone in its mouth. The dog gave the phone to the Executioner just before it rang. The gangster answered the phone. As he did, a bigger dog also came into the club and put its mouth on the Executioner's private parts, making him scream in pain. Doug told the man not to move, or the dog would hurt him badly and permanently. Then Doug explained that he wanted the Executioner to leave Martha alone. If not, the dog would enjoy a meal full of nuts. The Executioner agreed to the deal. As soon as the dogs ran out of the bar, he sent his men to go after them. Back in the present, it's morning. Evelyn visits Doug's home while the police are looking for clues. There are dead bodies and blood everywhere, and many bullet holes. After picking up a few things, Evelyn goes back to the station. Doug has already washed up and changed his clothes. He is thankful to her for bringing his things and continues telling his story. Little Doug had to live in the cage for months. He learned things from magazines he found hidden behind a loose board, which his mother probably left for him. One day, one of the dogs got pregnant. Doug hid the puppies so his family wouldn't see them. Sadly, Richie saw him again and told his dad. His dad immediately came out with a gun, ready to get rid of the puppies. Doug quickly held onto the cage door and started yelling at Mike. The dogs barked and growled along with him. Mike was furious. He shot Doug through the door, and Doug fell. The bullet hit his hand and made him lose a finger. Then, it bounced off and hit Doug in his spine. Richie was worried that things could get worse, and Doug might die. So he took Mike inside after dropping a handkerchief for Doug. Doug couldn't move much. He wrapped the handkerchief around his bleeding hand and put the finger inside a little bag. Then, he grabbed a magazine and showed his dog a picture of a police car. He gave the dog the bag with the finger in it and told the dog to leave through the hole made by the shot and find the police. The dog ran away with the bag in its mouth. It crossed the town until it found a police car. It sat on the car until the police noticed it. Soon, many police officers surrounded Doug's house. They rushed in and found the poor boy in the cage. Inside the house, Richie was clinging to Mike, scared. An ambulance quickly took Doug away, but the doctor did not remove the bullet. In the present, Doug explains to Evelyn that with leg braces, he can walk a little bit, just enough to do things like get into bed. He can also stand, but only for a few seconds. The doctors didn't take out the bullet because if they moved things around that area, they might make him unable to move his legs at all. This is also a risk every time Doug tries to stand up. Mike was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but he killed himself after 2 weeks. Richie got 12 years and was let out after 8 years for good behavior. On the day he got out of prison, a few dogs were waiting for him outside. They started to follow him. As Richie walked through town, more and more dogs joined the first ones until Richie finally noticed them. He tried to run away through an alley, but the dogs jumped on him and attacked him until he died. After Doug was released from the hospital, he was sent to a home for children, but he couldn't make any friends. The other kids were always playing outside, so he stayed in his wheelchair in the library and read a lot. The only person who became his friend was Salma. She was Doug's first and only love. She was a young woman who helped at the children's home and loved Shakespeare's plays. Since she heard Doug liked to read too, she showed him all her favorite books. She even convinced him to put on small plays for the other kids. Most of their props were cheap or handmade, but they put a lot of effort and passion into their acting, so the other children loved it. Doug had a lot of fun dressing up. He really enjoyed Salma teaching him how to put on makeup because she said it helped him be whoever he wanted to be. Salma was smart, creative, and had a special way of looking at the world that made Doug quickly fall in love with her. Sadly, one day she left the children's home to try to become an actress. Over the next few years, Doug would collect every newspaper article he saw about her plays. He carefully added them to his scrapbook. Eventually, Doug grew up and went to college through online classes. He got a degree in biological sciences and then got a job at a dog shelter. When Salma finally made it to Broadway, Doug went to see her play. He tried to get closer to the stage, but everyone was standing up and he couldn't get there. Luckily, he was allowed to go backstage, and Salma immediately knew who he was. She was very happy to see him and really liked his flowers, but she got even more excited when he gave her the scrapbook. Salma was so touched that she thanked him with a kiss, which made Doug hopeful. Doug was about to tell her how he felt when suddenly the director came in and also complimented the scrapbook. Doug was heartbroken to hear that Salma was married to the director and they were already expecting a baby. Feeling very sad, Doug congratulated them and went back to the shelter. There, he stood up so he could yell and hit the cages to let out his anger. The dogs barked at him. When he fell on the floor, one dog struggled with the cage latch until it managed to open it. All the dogs came out and cuddled Doug to make him feel better. After that, Doug cut his hair as a way to show he was letting go of his feelings. Sometime later, 2 men from the government came to tell him that they were closing the shelter. They said it was because of budget cuts. Doug pointed out that the budget had been cut every year since he started working there, and he still kept the shelter running because he lived on donations. The only money he got from the city was for the building itself. The men, feeling caught, admitted that the land was being sold to a builder to make money. Douglas had until Monday to move out, and the dogs would hopefully be sent to other shelters. But when Monday came, the authorities found the building empty because Doug had run away with all the dogs. That was when Doug moved into the old, empty college building. There he spent time reading to his dog family. He soon started to look for a job, but every place turned him down because he was in a wheelchair. One afternoon, Doug went to a club that was looking for someone to work at the bar. He arrived just in time to see the drag queens practicing their show. He immediately loved their costumes and their performances. The owner told Doug that he had already hired someone for the bar, but Doug said he wanted to act instead and told him about his experience. The man pointed out that people wouldn't be interested in a show done by someone in a wheelchair, so Doug got out of his chair and explained that he could stand for a whole song. The queens were very impressed and thought he was cute. They convinced the owner to give Doug a chance. The next Friday, the queens helped Douglas get clothes, makeup, and a wig for his show. Wanting to make a good impression, he took off his leg braces. He asked his new friends to be ready to catch him when he was finished. The queens helped him get onto the stage. He waited behind the curtains. The curtains opened when he was introduced as Edith Piaf. Doug started singing in French, making small movements with his hands. Both the audience and his co-workers were amazed by his voice. Everyone could hear the strong emotion in the song. By the end, everyone clapped and cheered for Doug, wanting him to sing more. The curtains closed, and the other queens rushed to catch Doug just before he fell. From then on, Doug was allowed to perform in the club every Friday night. Of course, this didn't pay enough money to live on, so Doug started a service that matched lonely people with the right dog for company and protection. He also gave them extra help if they needed it, hinting at illegal things like what he did with the executioner. One day, while he was cooking, the dogs would bring him any ingredient he needed from the pantry. This made Doug realize that this could be used to do what he called fair sharing of wealth. His smallest dog would sneak into rich people's houses through windows or small openings in the ceiling that were left unlocked because they were so small. Then the dog would open a bigger way in so all the other dogs could come in too. Together, they would steal all the jewelry they could carry. Nobody ever thought animals were doing it. Things went well for a while, but one day, a rich lady called an insurance agent named Ackerman. She thought the lady was trying to cheat the insurance company. Supposedly, every window and door in her house had been locked except for a very tiny bathroom window. Also, her own dogs didn't bark. However, the lady gave him the security camera videos. When Ackerman started to watch them, he saw a dog running out with something in its mouth. It seemed crazy, but then he remembered other strange cases from the last few months and checked the other videos as well. He was shocked to find out that the same dogs were always in the videos. The other agents had just thought they were random stray dogs. In one particular video, Ackerman saw a guy pretending to be a guard waiting for the dogs with a truck. He looked up the license plate and found Doug's information. Eventually, he found out that Doug was working at the club. One Friday night, Ackerman went to Doug's show. He was shocked to see Doug wearing one of the stolen necklaces. After the show, Ackerman went to the dressing room with a flower, pretending to be a fan of Doug. He asked Doug out for dinner, but Doug said no, because he had to go home to feed his kids. When Doug left the bar, Ackerman secretly followed him. As Ackerman entered the old building with a gun, the dogs warned Doug. Doug immediately told them to hide. Ackerman found the Doberman guarding the hallway and thought about shooting it, but at that moment, Doug opened the door and told him the jewelry was in the safe. Once Ackerman had the box, he sat down to check if everything was there. Doug used this chance to order his dogs to kill Ackerman. Now that most of his life story has been told, Doug shares why he was arrested. The evening after Doug helped Martha, the executioner and his gang found the old building because they beat up Juan until he told them where it was. Once they were sure they were in the right place, they shot and killed Juan. The sound warned Doug that they were there. He told the dogs to get ready for a fight while he grabbed a weapon from his collection. The executioner ignored the Doberman and started shooting at the metal door, but it didn't open. Doug escaped through a narrow, hidden hallway. At that moment, a little dog ran by the hallway and a gangster followed it into a hole. The bigger dogs then dragged the gangster in and killed him. Then the gang split up and started to follow the different dogs that kept peeking into the hallway. One guy followed a dog into a bathroom with a wet floor. The dog released an electrical cable and electrocuted him. Another guy followed a small chihuahua into a locker room. When he got close enough, Doug shot him through the wall. A man went into the wrong room and found himself surrounded by huge dogs that immediately attacked and killed him. While chasing a small dog, another guy fell into a hidden pit. When his friend tried to help him, the dog pushed him down as well. Then Doug came over and shot both of them. In the hallway, a gangster stepped on a trap and was left hanging from the ceiling for a dog to catch. Nearby, another gangster also fell into a trap and was attacked and killed. The executioner started to get nervous and asked his men to bring him a better weapon. At that moment, Doug started shooting through the wall, hitting a few men. When the executioner shot back, a bullet hit Doug's back before he could duck. A desperate Doug dragged his body across the floor and took the narrow hallway to go back to his rooms. The executioner used the bigger weapon to finally open the door. He came inside and tried to shoot Doug, only to find out he was out of bullets. The dogs used this chance to kill him too. After that, Doug and his dogs escaped in a truck. That was when the police caught them. While Doug waited in the police car, he gave the dogs a signal and they immediately ran away. In the present, Evelyn tells Doug she has heard enough and leaves. Then Doug smokes near the window and smiles when he hears a dog howl. It turns out his dog has been waiting outside. When it howls, all the other dogs come to the area too. While Doug dresses up nicely with the things Evelyn brought him, the dogs enter the police station. They scare the front guard so much that he faints. Then, a very thin dog steals the keys and goes through the bars to drop the keys by Doug's door. After that, Doug escapes and leaves his wheelchair behind. He is determined to walk to the church across the street. He asks God to judge him, and then he falls on the ground as he dies. Soon, all his dogs surround him, and every dog in town also comes to say goodbye. Meanwhile, the Doberman goes to Evelyn's house to protect her from her violent ex-husband.